Okay, next up is images from the past. Press.
Get my audio back on. There we go. Uh, I'm Tordesil Gisselhart. I'm the publisher at Images from the Past. And I imagine that uh, we are rather unique among, an exception among us here, in that I've written none of our books, and they're all backlist titles, with the most recent in 2019, the paperback edition of our 2011 book on President Kennedy's trip to Ireland 5 months before he was assassinated. We're a small, independent Vermont publisher focused on books that bring to life the stories of people, places, and events, both within their historical context and from the perspective of today. As declared on our website's homepage, Images from the Past publishes history in ways that help people see it for themselves. To achieve that, our books are richly illustrated with visuals that show what the author has chosen to say in their text, either to emphasize or expand on it, with carefully worded captions that link the two. Most have extensive indexes, bibliographies, chapter notes, and other back matter. They present thoroughly researched history that the reader can both trust and enjoy. Founded in 1994, we have 31 titles to our credit, all of which, except two, are still in print. For 10 years, starting in 2013, Applewood Books was our exclusive distributor. In 2023, when Applewood became part of Arcadia Publishing, we reassumed the responsibility for sales, marketing, and shipping, direct interaction with buyers at museum stores, gift shops, and libraries, and with individual customers in person and through our website. Our most recent book was the paperback edition of one of ourselves, John Fitzgerald Kennedy in Ireland. Its preface includes an excerpt from Jackie Kennedy's 3.5-page letter to the President of Ireland, in which 2 months after her husband's assassination in November 1963, she shared how deeply significant her husband's June visit to his ancestral land had been to him. Both one of ourselves, whoops, yep, where to get it so you can see it. There we go. And before we went wireless, will be exhibited with the Independent Publishers of New England at the New England Library Association conference at the end of this month. They are stellar examples of our mission, and like all our books, were the result of the authors, editors, and designers' teamwork, and my coordinating role as publisher. As also stated on our website, the people are long gone. Perhaps not even the terrain remains quite the same. Yet we are surrounded by what happened, and may, with a little help, if we allow ourselves, be able to imagine other times. Vince Feeney is the epitome of an Images from the Past author. Over to you, Vince.
Thank you, Tortoise. I always have to ask, since I'm so technologically inept, everyone can hear me, I assume. For images from the past, I have written two books, one of which, the first one of which came out in, I think it, Tortoise, now must be about 2009. This was a book that I wrote on the Irish in Vermont. Not being a native Vermonter myself, when I first arrived in Vermont from California back in the 1960s, I was surprised to realize that were so many people of Irish descent living in Vermont. My image of Vermont was, of course, of Yankee Reserve, of town meetings, maple syrup, and so on. But while teaching a course on Irish history here in Vermont, I got the chance to meet many native Vermonters who came from an Irish background. So I had determined at that time that once I retired, I would I would research and write a book on Vermont history. That book, as I said, came out in 2009 under the interesting title, I think, of Finnegans, Slaters, and Stone Peggers. I'll read just a short paragraph from the first chapter about an individual who was not a Vermonter, but from Massachusetts, but was really the first person to look in to the fact that there were many Irish in New England much earlier than the potato famine that we think of as having brought in so many Irish. So here's that paragraph. In many respects, Michael J. O'Brien was a typical Irish immigrant living in New York City. He had been born in Fermoy, County Cork in 1870, received the equivalent of a high school education, and emigrated to the United States while still a teenager. In 1889, he took a job in the accounting section of the Western Union Company. Steady and persevering, he worked for Western Union for the next 47 years, retiring in 1936. Along the way, he married and raised two daughters. If these facts had been the summation of his life's accomplishments, his biography would be of little interest to us. But early in life, Michael J. O'Brien determined to revise American history. In his spare time, in the evenings, weekends, and on vacations, O'Brien researched and wrote about the Irish who settled in America in the colonial period. That was my cue to do the same, to start this book with the colonial period. The second book, which Images from the Past, published for me, was A History of Burlington. One of the other things I discovered about living in Burlington was there was no history of the city that's the most important city or the urban center in Vermont had no narrative history. Thus, I wrote this book, Burlington, A History of Vermont's Queen City. And I'll read a chapter or a paragraph from that book. Where does the history of Burlington begin? If it's the history of the city only, then that would take us back only to 1865. If by Burlington we mean the town, then we have to travel back to 1763, when it received its charter from the Royal Province of New Hampshire. But if by Burlington we mean a site, a place where humans once huddled around fire pits, built bark or hide-covered shelters, sewed doeskin leggings, then we have to go back far in time indeed, to a time more studied by archaeologists than historians. Well, thank you very much.